Hello and welcome to Romdo. This is episode number 2, the one about fail. This week on the panel I have Jim Merberg.
Hello.
Eric Harton.
Hey.
And I'm your host, Alex.
And your last name is?
Bryce.
Yeah. We are going to have this in the episode. It's about fail. Yeah?
Yes, exactly. We should include this whole conversation now as well.
Yeah, we totally should.
Let me drink really loudly as well.
That's a pretty good one to start the show with.
I'm chewing ice, sorry.
Anyway.
Yes.
Jim will start with his fails, I guess. He had something to say.
Yes, I had a correction from the previous episode where I stated that the update from PS3 to PS4 version of Final Fantasy XIV should still be available. After the episode, we recorded the episode and released it, I looked it up and it turns out that ended on the 1st of April 2015, so sorry anyone who potentially got their hopes up.
Well, quite an April Fool's prank, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit, like, yeah, you can upgrade it until the 1st of April. April Fools!
Yay! I had my failure as well. I had someone point to me that the section where there's the GoldenEye 007 song was way too loud in the background music. I fixed that up and it's up again on SoundCloud, so if you download the episode before Thursday, July the 7th, do download again and you can hear that section.
Nice.
So guys, what have you been playing?
Witcher 3. Still.
How many hours are you in?
Oh, about 50 only, so I haven't gotten around to it that often, so because I'm not playing as much as I used to play when I played Destiny, because that was like 3-4 hours every single night of the week.
Right.
Weekends, probably about 8-9 hours, but now every time I do tend to sit down to play, it tends to be like 5 hours, 6 hours of Witcher straight. So
Wow.
yeah, Friday I started at like 9 or something, 9:30 at night, and yeah, I eventually like got up at 4 a.m. when I realized I nodded off for about 2 minutes, and then Geralt wasn't where he was standing last I remembered when I opened my eyes again. I'm like, okay, time to go to bed. I was not standing in this room when last I remember.
You've been playing some old games, I guess.
Yeah. A few weeks ago, I bought a Super NES out of eBay, and I've been having so much fun out of it. And like, I think I completed 4 or 5 games by now. And I bought also a copy of The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past from eBay. The guy just said, yeah, it's a PAL version, so I thought, okay, European cartridge, fine. My SNES is European. Then I put the cartridge on and everything's in German. Yay.
Nice.
It's the best Zelda in the series.
Yeah, it totally is. I think like A Link to the Past, Minish Cap, and the new 3DS one are the best ones personally. But
I still need to properly play A Link to the Past.
A lot of SNES games that look really good to this day.
Yeah.
Well, games like Donkey Kong Country aside, which don't look too good today, but games that actually use that are 2D from the beginning, like Super Mario World. What else? Terranigma.
Yep.
If you played that one.
Yep.
And
Metroid looks fantastic.
Super Metroid, yeah, that looks fantastic to this day.
Never played those because I never had a Super Nintendo.
You missed out on the best gen of consoles, Jim. Go and get yourself one.
I know. Need to get through Witcher first. To repeat myself.
That's gonna take a while.
Yeah.
So.
And Eric, why have you been playing?
Well, our fighting game circles have been playing this game called Yatagara's Attack on Cataclysm, which is it's a Kickstarted game. So it was kickstarted at the time when the big Kickstarter craze was happening,
right?
And people were thinking these are the guys who made guys who made old King of Fighters games, and there's a developer from the guys who made the developer from the team who made Third Strike, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. So, and their sprites look good.
Cool.
And the game is okay, actually. It's just that everything else about it sucks. The sad part is that the game is actually okay. The mechanics are fine, and I like most of the character designs, and I like playing the game. It's just that everything around the game, the UI, the net play, everything, it's just painful.
And what kind of game does it compare to? Does it feel more like King of Fighters, or?
They actually kind of blend together Street Fighter Third Strike. They had their parry system from that.
Yeah.
And then there's also some of the speed of King of Fighters in that. So.
Right.
The game's okay.
I just hope they fix the other shit.
Shall we move on to news?
News it is.
Yeah, well, slightly old news by now, because we take our damn time to get organized to do this, but...
Well, there's still news, kind of.
Yeah, still is news, especially because it's kind of big, so... Should I start with pointing out that 2 major PC games were basically pulled from store due to them just being shit?
Wow.
So, apparently Arkham Knight being pulled is kind of unprecedented when it comes to a major like AAA PC release being just completely pulled from sale and just nope, sorry, you can't buy it anymore, it's too broken. And Final Fantasy XIV for Mac pretty much just ended up doing the exact same thing, just nope, too broken, can't run, performance is horrible.
I bought that, and the performance is fucking awful. Like, even on, I have a MacBook, 15-inch Retina MacBook Pro, so you'd think like this is as close as top tier you get before the Mac Pro.
Yep.
And the best I could get with everything set to low, like even below the lowest preset, was 20 FPS, and that's peak. Like, it would get down to 12 FPS at times.
Wow.
And that's running on like 1024 by 768.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible. I heard of some guys that actually did a test on a Mac Pro, and it ran at a 35 FPS on a machine that had 2 ATI cards.
Those cards, if I recall, are like a few grand each?
Yeah.
Yep. Nice.
So what does it run on? Is it on Cider?
Yeah, I think so. It's the trans gaming stuff.
Yeah.
Cider.
Pretty much a wraparound wine, just.
Yeah, it's supposed to be optimized, but I literally think they must have just thrown it together in a matter of days.
And the thing, and from what I'm getting, you have to actually buy the Mac client separately. You don't get you don't just buy one version of the game and it runs on everything.
Yeah, that's simply absurd, and you have to pay a subscription for it on top of it. So like,
yeah, it's like you have to first buy the game for every platform you want to play it on, and then to be able to play it at all, you also have to pay the fucking subscription.
Well, it does come with 30 days free each time you buy it. And you know what? You have to buy the expansion for each platform as well. That's just retarded.
Oh god.
Why?
Because it's Square Enix and they're greedy.
They hate their users, basically.
Yeah.
Anyway, and Arkham Knight also had issues on PC, I guess. I didn't get it, but it got pulled out from Steam.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got pulled from Steam and it got pulled from retail sale and pretty much sale anywhere.
Retail sales as well.
Yeah, they pulled it completely. You can't buy it anymore.
Okay,
It's just it's too broken. I remember seeing an article about a week ago about somebody that was using like NVIDIA Titan X card or something.
Yeah.
And he was getting like 30 something frames per second. So and even then it would still like freeze and do random stuff. So
Yeah, I know people are blaming it on the engine they use that is made by NVIDIA, I think. It's called NVIDIA Works or something.
you mean GameWorks?
GameWorks, yeah.
It's not an engine. It's add-on stuff that you can basically tap into. So it includes like a physics engine and all kinds of stuff. I mean, what's it called? Witcher 3 uses that as well. So, but I don't think that was necessarily the issue with Arkham Knight, though. Most people seem to be blaming it on just a really, really bad port because the port was done by an external company. It wasn't done by Rocksteady.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Like, I think you do the PC version first, especially now that everything is converging to a PC-like architecture.
The cynic in me says that the one of the main reasons that the game got pulled was that Steam now has refunds.
Yes.
So it so
there is
I
that
guess,
as well.
So I guess what happened was that people bought the game, played it for 30 minutes and realized this is shit, and then asked for a refund. And now they can do that.
Yeah, you have 2 hours, if I remember right, to basically just claim a complete refund.
Cause it's a pain, a destiny child, you know it will.
And Jim's only reason to come back to Destiny had some issues, I guess.
The Taken King, yes. This news is a few weeks old now, and they have at least made a bit better on the promise of it. Basically, what happened was that they announced that the Taken King will have a collector's edition, which includes the original game and the first 2 expansion packs, and the Taken King. It will be priced at like $80 in the US, and it will come with exclusive emotes and emblems that you cannot get anywhere else. And a lot of people got quite pissed off about that, especially people that have been playing from the very beginning of Destiny, because they're like, so if I want this exclusive content, because I love the game and I want all content the game offers, I have to buy the original game and the 2 expansions again, which pissed a lot of people off. And what really pissed them off was an interview with Eurogamer where the Taken King director was basically just being a bit of an idiot, and basically said that well, if I showed you these emotes now on the screen here, you would just throw money at the screen, kind of thing. It's like, what?
Oh my god.
Yeah. It's like, you don't say stuff like that. I mean, especially not if you're at E3 trying to promote the thing. I mean, sure, he's probably just a developer that normally doesn't deal with stuff, and he just likes code and likes the game and stuff, but really, please, do not say shit like that, because it just blew up. And he admittedly did apologize in a post on Bungie, and specifically called himself an asshat. And they also addressed the exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else by making it available as a $20 add-on. And then to top it off as well, with that whole fiasco, was that the whole Red Bull thing got announced as well. You guys heard about this?
No?
Basically, they have an exclusive deal with Red Bull that specific cans of Red Bull have a special code on them that give you access to some custom emblem and stuff in game, and a custom mission in the game that is exclusive to people who have bought Red Bull cans and entered this code.
Such bullshit.
Yes, exactly. It's like, really? You're announcing this as well after you just massively screwed up? The mission, however, will become available to everyone in January next year. But until then, you can only play that mission and get the other stuff that is included by buying it's a special Red Bull can as well, and also you can only get them in North America.
So what's this mission anyway? Is it something like hunt for Red Bull cans in the game world and...
It wouldn't surprise me.
Shooting Red Bull cans in the air so they don't fall down. Whoever gets the most shots gets a reward.
I don't know. It really seems like Bungie are just taking it up the ass from Activision. Activision is just like, let's milk the shit out of this. And yeah, Bungie, you're just fucked because we've given you $500 million, so just do what we say.
Yeah. All right. Shall we get on to talking about our main subject this episode, which is the transition of next gen becoming current gen and last gen going away?
Sounds good to me. Not a subtle transition at all.
No, it's been 2 years since the new consoles have been announced, the new generation of consoles were announced. And back then, like I remember on the press conferences, they'd say, yeah, this game's coming out on PS4, but also on the X360 and the PS3, except for the exclusives like Rise and Forza and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And if you look at this year's E3, I think it's the first time that didn't actually happen.
Yes. I mean, I don't remember seeing anything about previous gen games or consoles at E3 this year, and I believe it's kind of obviously down to the fact that there's actually enough current gen consoles out on the market now. I mean, the PS4 is all 20-something million consoles by now.
Yep.
Xbox One, I think, is up to 15 million, maybe. I'm kind of guessing. So I mean, there's definitely a large enough user base that you can make a game for just current gen, and you're gonna make a lot of money. Might have to do corrections about all of these numbers next episode. We shall see.
Disclaimer: we don't have Wikipedia open while doing the podcast.
No, we're guesstimating.
Yeah.
And guess recalling from memory. But yeah, no, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, well, what I was saying is still having the lowest common denominator from the previous generation if you are doing cross-generation games.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So now that has been dropped, right? And I think The Witcher 3, for instance, isn't available on previous gen, is it?
No.
Arkham Knight also not.
Nope.
Yeah. And those games are looking amazing and running amazing on the new consoles. So
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up is like, now that we're current gen or next gen only, a lot of things have been made possible. And what was actually the impact these consoles had on the way that developers are doing their games? One thing I really noticed is like we're going for larger open worlds now.
Indeed.
As you mentioned with The Witcher 3, like the whole thing is alive and there's so much content you can even put your hand on it. Although that was already there in last gen, for instance, in Skyrim, I think the difference is in feel, like those worlds are more densely populated and the people in it do stuff.
Yes, definitely. So I mean, The Witcher, every nook and cranny kind of has a little bit of a feeling alive, even if it's just the wind, like breezing through the trees and the bushes, it feels alive, and there are creatures there. And I mean, leading up to the release of the game, I remember seeing and listening to interviews, and there's like complex systems. Like if you kill an animal, for example, somewhere in the forest, that will eventually give off a smell that might attract certain types of monsters that like rotting flesh.
Wow.
And there's all those kind of systems, and I mean, they're not obvious when you play the game, but they do factor into it, and I think they do make the world feel more alive.
Right.
Which is quite interesting, and I mean, the world is obviously massive as well, but overall, it's the most, deep and rich open world I've ever played. I've never been so fascinated by an open world in a game. It's like, I feel like I'm there. It feels alive, and also, it looks absolutely stunning. There's few things I've seen in video games that look as pretty as walking through the forest with nice trees swaying in the wind in a nice sunny day in Witcher 3, or just staring at a sunset or sunrise. I mean, the visuals might not look as good as they would if I had a monster PC, but they look still absolutely stunning on the PS4.
There's other games as well, right? Like even Shadow of Mordor had like this very vast open world you can explore.
It was quite big, but not that big in comparison to most open world games. It had two big kind of main areas that you could go back and forth between, but in comparison to a lot of games, it wasn't that big. I mean, GTA 5 had a bigger world, for example.
Right.
Even on last gen.
Right.
So, but then again, GTA 5 didn't have the Nemesis system and other complicated things.
Yeah, the Nemesis system is the main thing with Shadow of Mordor. These randomly generated orcs that have personality, and they have these kind of different things they like doing.
Well, to some degree randomly generated, but also evolving based on what happens to them.
Yep. And since you mentioned Assassin's Creed Unity a while back, Jim, and the 500 non-player characters and their AI running, I think one big difference made possible by these new consoles as well is like more involved and deeper AI. I don't know if we're seeing that yet, but it's probably coming.
Yes, I agree, and I actually need to correct you there, because it's 5,000 NPCs on screen at the same time, not 500. Which is 5,000 is a bit of an astonishing number, especially when they all need to have their own AI routines react to other AIs in their surrounding areas as they walk and so on. But yeah, I really hope we do get a lot more advanced AI. I mean, AI per se has its limitations in how advanced the AI is, and just throwing more horsepower at it isn't going to make a stupid AI algorithm more intelligent. So I think we're going to see more basically neural net-based AI systems eventually creep into games. Whether it's a neural net that is constantly evolving as you play the game, or if it's a neural net that is trained offline before the game is released, but then can pull from a massive knowledge base while the game is running, which might not have been possible on previous gen consoles. That would be quite interesting to see.
Well, I don't know. I've seen a presentation by the guys that made Left 4 Dead 2.
Yeah.
And they said like neural nets are cool, but they don't really map well into AI, because the things that most AI have to do, like pathfinding and, detecting enemy and behaving human-like, are best done by implementing behaviors, like state machines based on behaviors and layering behaviors on top of each other.
Yeah.
And you could have a lot more of those behaviors running simultaneously on the PS4, for instance, which has 8 cores.
True.
Than you could on last gen, although the PS3 already had 8 cores, but it was a mindfuck to program too.
Yes, and it wasn't as powerful, if I recall.
Well, the PS3 had some really, it had, theoretically, it had more power than the 360, but the first party developers actually took use of any of that.
Which brings us to another thing. Like, I remember back when we were discussing with a friend of ours, Jim, about the next gen consoles and why would we need a next gen console. The constant theme was like, okay, we need next gen console so you can get full HD at 60 FPS.
Yeah, I remember that. 60 FPS has a number of asterisks next to it.
Yeah, and 1080p as well.
Yes. So far the PS4 is doing pretty alright with 1080p, but the Xbox One is less so well.
Yeah.
So at least it's not 720p anymore. 900p seems to be the standard on the Xbox One.
Yep. But doesn't matter. Like, is there actually a visual difference to the human eye when you're looking like... I think most of us game on big screens, so you'd see a difference from up close, but do you notice anything?
I mean, I actually have The Witcher 3, for example, for both PS4 and Xbox One, due to the PS4 Collector's Edition not having a bunch of cool stuff I wanted that the Xbox One did, and I wanted to play on the PS4, but I did try it on both consoles, and having primarily played it on the PS4, the Xbox One didn't really look much different, to be honest. It looked maybe slightly softer around the edges, like it had a bit more anti-aliasing, or anti-aliasing, however it's pronounced, applied to it. Which obviously doesn't, it's just the actual upscaling the 900p to 1080p that the Xbox One is outputting. So I mean, it didn't look or feel that much difference, to be honest. Especially, at least not with The Witcher 3, but I remember I played Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, on the Xbox One, and then the DLC that came out was available as a standalone, and I figured I'll get that on the PS4 because it'll run at 1080p on the PS4, and I want to see if there's any difference. I mean, admittedly, it's not the same game, but it is pretty much the same engine, same assets, just a different main character, really. And on the PS4, it did feel and look a lot sharper. but it could just be down to the anti-aliasing on the Xbox One version not being that great, or the upscaling not being that great for that specific game, because it actually felt like it looked better on PS4, while with The Witcher 3 didn't really look much different at all. It felt pretty much the same, so just I was holding a different controller in my hand. So it was a lot harder to tell. I mean, if you put me in front of one or the other, I would have had a hard time to tell the difference, while with Assassin's Creed 4 and the Freedom Cry DLC, for example, regardless of the fact that it was different content in the game, just based on how the picture looked on TV, I would have had an easier time telling them apart, at least, because on the PS4 it's full 1080p versus the 900p on the Xbox One. It did feel sharper and better.
Right. So it does make a slight difference, but not too much, at least between the 900p and the 1080p stuff.
Yeah, it's not a big difference, and I think depending on the game as well and what kind of anti-aliasing they use, it can be even less of a difference.
I think the resolution conversation is a bit overblown. It wasn't that big of an issue even in the last gen. It was mostly people who were counting pixels. They took screenshots and then they were counting pixels and then guessing the resolution.
Yep.
I think this is 600p maybe. And then they were posting it over our own boards. But what I think is more important is to have a solid frame rate. And
Agreed.
60 FPS is, I think, what everyone should be going for. But a solid 30 can work.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I played The Last of Us on the PS3 to completion, and that runs at 30 FPS on the PS3, and I played for about maybe 10 hours on the PS4, which runs at specifically 60 FPS, and it even has an option to lock it down to 30, so you can get the authentic PS3 feel of it if you prefer it, and it does feel so much better at 60 FPS, definitely. But at least this generation, a lot more games are hitting 60 FPS than the previous gen, because I remember checking a list for a couple of years ago on games that basically their resolutions and their frame rates, and I think on the PS3 there was like maybe a handful of games that actually hit 1080p and 60 FPS, and it was like 2D platformers or something.
Right.
And on the Xbox One there was like one game that actually hit, or the Xbox 360, sorry. It was like one game that hit 1080p, period. Maybe two, I could be wrong. And the only games that hit 60 FPS really was the Call of Duty and the Battlefield games, but they sacrificed massively on resolution instead. It was like 900 wide by 600 tall or something. So just like massively scaled down. Or it was like 1080p tall, but it was like 800 wide and just stretched, just so they could hit the 60 FPS.
Well, the frame rate is important, isn't it?
There's a funny system in Tekken Tag 2 where the game actually dynamically switches the resolution when you have more characters than two on the screen. So
Oh, interesting.
So
Nice.
it can actually get pretty ugly. It becomes something like 500p when there's four characters on the screen.
Wow.
Well, still, if it keeps the frame rate up, I think it's worth the sacrifice. And to be honest, like, I know when I'm watching videos and looking at screenshots, I do notice a huge difference between current gen and last gen. But when I'm playing, it's much less so. I don't know why. It's probably because I'm so focused on the thing at hand that I don't have time to, stop and breathe the air and watch the scenery.
Maybe. I mean, I remember going back to Far Cry 3 maybe last summer, and it looked really bad to me. I'm like, this is bad. I'm gonna play a bit, but the visuals did kind of annoy me. But I mean, it's still a good game and all, but I don't know. Maybe I just pay more attention to visuals. So, and on the topic of dynamic resolution changing as well, Wolfenstein: The New Order on the Xbox One, it actually dynamically changes its resolution, but only vertically. So the actual width will dynamically change, and not just like in large increments, in like small ones. It'll dynamically just like reduce it 10 pixels or so if it helps to keep the solid frame rate, which is quite cool. The and it's only the Xbox One version, if I recall, that does it. The PS4 version is a fixed 1080p, but it does have a few more, or did have a few more frame rate drops than the Xbox One version, but it was like maybe just a handful, so it was like hardly noticeable at all.
Yeah, but I was about to comment on that because I have it both on PC and on the PS4. PC version I get to run on a constant 60 FPS, and the PS4 feels a bit jagged at times. I think it does make a huge difference, the frame rate count for FPSs.
Yes. So, and we've just spent 10 minutes now retreading a discussion that happened over 2 years ago for in the gaming world in general. But it's still an interesting topic, though, in my opinion.
Yeah, and now we have concrete examples to base ourselves on. It's not the theoretical discussion that's been on for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
So what games have from current gen are actually some really good looking ones? I mean, the order is, but there's not much of a game to that.
No, I mean, the order is probably the best looking game in terms of visual detail that has existed. It looks absolutely stunning. And as a side note from visuals, it has a very different, very impressive feature as well, which is loading times. Literally, if the game is completely shut down on the PS4, you launch it and you hit resume. I'm not even sure they need to show a loading indicator, because it's about 7 seconds and you're in the game and playing it, which I was just like, wait, did this actually load? Was it already up? I'm confused, which was quite impressive. So virtually zero load time. But as for showcases or best looking games, in my opinion, the order, obviously. Witcher 3, it might not be the most detailed game ever because it's a massive open world, but for what it is it is extremely detailed and extremely pretty.
Well, I do have a hit to that. Like, the opening cutscene on The Witcher 3 where Geralt's taking a bath. Like, the first thing they show is his feet, and they're shining. They're, like, emitting so much light around, it looks like it's made out of silicone.
Yes, the water or wet physics or shader, whatever you want to call it, isn't the greatest in Witcher 3, but overall, the visual performance that it delivers is very pretty.
The facial animations were also not up to par, in my opinion. Like, it still feels very, very fake. It's nothing like a human talking at all.
It depends. Some of them, if you play it a bit more, you're going to see a lot of points where Geralt's reactions literally speak 1,000 words, just like one look on his face, and it's like, whoa. So, admittedly, there's not much of that in the beginning of the game, and it feels a bit stiffer in the opening, but it does get deeper. And I mean, facial animations, they still have a way to go. I mean, even motion captured stuff in movies feels weird sometimes.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, at least, it's one of the more impressive games when it comes to facial animations, at least 50 hours in. So, and then, let's see, the other two games I think that are probably some of the prettiest ever made is Infamous Second Son. It is stunning, and Drive Club for the PS4. It's absolutely astonishing, especially if you're in cockpit view, driving down a track while it's raining heavily. The water physics on the windshield when the windshield wiper's going is beyond anything I've seen in the game. It looks like it's actual real water just splashing around on the screen, because it's not just, oh, you have a raindrop, the windscreen wiper goes and the raindrop disappears. It actually shoves it around, and as you turn the car, the actual like centrifugal forces to the left or right actually affects how the drops physically move across the windshield and stuff. It's just kind of ridiculous. And it looks absolutely stunning.
Awesome.
Yep. It's there was actually a comparison video between Project Cars and Drive Club on the PS4 that showed up last week, and Project Cars, I mean, all the demo shots they showed from PC and stuff looked amazing, but it just does not look very good compared to Drive Club on the PS4.
Right, and how about Forza? How's that compare with Drive Club?
Forza 5, for example, on the Xbox One looks very pretty, but it's not as pretty as Drive Club. It does hit 60 FPS though, and it's 1080p, so I think they're sacrificing a bit on fidelity there, and I'm not actually sure what frame rate Drive Club is running at. I want to say 30 frames per second, because I kind of recall something about that, and
It's 30, but it's a solid 30, so it never dips.
Yeah, exactly. So no, because I don't recall it feeling like it was 60 FPS at all.
It's easy to say, oh, we were going for TV visuals here, so that's why that's why our game is running at 24 FPS.
Lame excuse for a tech problem.
We were going for the animated GIF aesthetic. That's why the game runs at 8 frames per second.
Yeah.
Works if it's a Neon Cat game.
Yeah, it does. Which brings us to the point, actually. I was wondering, do you really feel it's more fun to play stuff now on the next-gen consoles than it was on last-gen? Does it make a difference?
Not necessarily. I mean, for the most part, so far, games just look a lot better. There hasn't been that revolution in gameplay and gameplay mechanics. The closest we've gotten really is Shadow of Mordor's Nemesis system, which of course was stripped out, as we learned earlier from the previous gen versions. So that's probably the most revolutionary thing we've seen so far in next-gen games, aside from them just looking a lot prettier. And, I mean, fair enough, to return to The Witcher 3 again, the massive open world would probably not have been possible on previous gen games, with it feeling as alive and as in-depth as it does. But aside from that, I don't really know what else has improved much, aside from just visuals and large open worlds feeling more alive.
How about fighting games, Eric? Do you see any difference there?
Well, there are a lot of it is a lot of the things that fighting games are based on are things that haven't changed at all for maybe 20 years.
Yep.
I mean, they all run at so you have a game that runs at 60 FPS, and it has the mechanics are the more important things. That are in the game, and not a lot of things. There's not a lot that has happened that has actually changed a lot or how these games play. So maybe if they got some really cool AI, that would be nice.
Yeah.
But so AI still is in this kind of weird position where either the AI is really easy, or then it's just cheap.
Right.
There's nothing in between.
Yeah. There's nothing like a human would be, right?
Yeah, they're either really easy to play against, or then they are doing things humans can't do in the game. They are actually breaking the rules of the game. That's one thing that AI bosses in fighting games do. Like SNK likes these kinds of bosses that have attacks that go full screen and at an instant, like this. So within one frame you have an attack that goes full screen and does half damage.
But say, if you were to play in a PS3 against someone playing on a PS4, would you have any sort of an advantage on the PS4?
There are some games there are some games, for instance, the new Guilty Gear.
Yeah.
You can play PS3 and PS4 players can play together, and there's no difference which system you're using. The PS3 version looks slightly worse because it's 720p, and then there's some effects are not there, but the game itself is the exact same as the PS4 version, which is 1080p and has all the bells and whistles. So there's no difference there.
Yeah. I think overall you can say like the new consoles are certainly not a big step up from the previous gen, like for instance the GameCube was from the N64, or the 64 was from the Super NES, or the Super NES was from the NES. Maybe we've reached the limit of where a gap would lie between one generation and the other of consoles.
Well, back in those days as well, technology was moving faster, and they were getting ever closer to rendering more realistic 3D worlds. And we're already at that point. We were last gen where we could render massive 3D worlds. Now, the only thing we can do is just make them more detailed. While before it was like, can we actually render this thing in 3D? Can it handle it live on the actual hardware? Or does it need to be rendered offline? Like Final Fantasy VII, for example, it's only the characters, I think, that's rendered live on the console. All the backdrops and stuff is just images.
Yep.
If I recall right. Yes, I mean now you don't need to do that. Everything can just be rendered on console, and the only thing that can be improved really between generations is just more power, make more details, because we're already in a full 3D environment.
True. Yeah, and the thing about that is that we have diminishing returns there, where you can only have so much details that people still notice. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, for example, we have the 3D models. If you double the amount of polygons, no one's going to notice. It has double the amount of polygons from the previous version.
Until you get to ray tracing. When you get to ray tracing, then it does make a difference.
Yes. So maybe next gen for that.
But that's another topic I wanted to bring up. So we've been for the past, I guess since like the PS2, we've been chasing realistic feeling and looking games. But if you look at the games of the past, like Atari games, NES games, 16-bit games, those were all very cartoonish, kind of on purpose, but also because of the limitations of the time. Now, if you look at what's coming out in terms of 3D animation, it's all very cartoonish these days. Like, there's been attempts at doing 3D that is realistic, like the early Final Fantasy movies and stuff. But the really successful ones are more fantasy style and cartoonish. I wonder when or if games are gonna take that direction, or if we're gonna keep on trying to make movies that you can play.
I don't know. I think when it comes to movies, the uncanny valley comes into effect quite heavily, because it's just a static media that you watch. So just watching it has to feel really good. Yeah. While in a game you have a little bit more leeway that it might feel a bit uncanny valley-ish, but it doesn't matter while you're playing it because the game itself feels good. So hence I think games have a bit more leeway when it comes to entering uncanny valley. Right. But at the same time, for movies, for example, the 3D animation stuff, it's not necessarily trying to replace live action. They're mostly just trying to replace cartoons. True. In my opinion.
But I don't know. I just miss the cartoonish things in games. I don't think, like, there's no AAA game out there being done in a cartoonish style. And I think games might have grown up a bit too much and forgot their legacy.
Well, there is The Last Guardian now. That looks a bit cartoonish.
Well, JRPGs are still being made that are cartoonish.
True. Oh, but they're full on cartoon.
But that sucks. Like, those cel-shaded graphics are just abysmal.
True.
And then like I said, the new Guilty Gear. Actually, that's funny because it looks exactly like the old 2D games, but then when you do a super move, the camera pans out and then it turns out to be 3D. It's actually quite nice looking.
Cool. So I think the best case for cel-shaded graphics is Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, specifically the HD version for Wii U. I consider that one of the prettiest games ever made. It's not very detailed when it comes to visuals, but the actual aesthetic and how it looks is just gorgeous.
Yep. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you get things like, how's that called? The PS3 game done by Studio Ghibli?
Ni no Kuni.
Ni no Kuni, yeah. Which is quite a fun game in itself, but I just can't get over the graphics.
I actually like the visuals in that game.
I had the opposite problem. The game is some of the most boring JRPG stuff that I've ever played. but it looks nice.
Yeah. I mean, I think I bought it for £5 when it was on sale on PSN, just because it looks fucking gorgeous, and I love the look of it, but literally first fight, like, just as the game starts, I'm like, nope, screw this, can't stand it.
Yeah, but you're not a big JRPG fan, are you?
No, I'm not. I like Final Fantasy XV, the way it's shaping out, but that's probably the closest I'll get. Another topic I want to cover actually is the social factor of these new consoles, because that's kind of the main new big feature of current gen.
Yeah.
Which I'm actually quite enjoying. I mean, I don't necessarily share stuff to Twitter or stuff, but at least especially the recording stuff I really like. I mean, most of the times when I'm playing, something weird happens or a funny glitch happens or something like that, and I'll just record it. Just because I might never do anything with it, but I'll record it anyway. I mean, I currently have, I think I've recorded maybe 5 or 6 random glitches in The Witcher over the last few days, which I at least intend to cut together to a small, like, funny thing. Things with just, like, 2 characters walking through a closed door in a cutscene. The door just didn't open, but that didn't stop them from walking through it.
Right.
So, things like that. And I mean, also Kotaku has their like highlights thing that they do 3 times a week, where they basically just take submissions from readers and they just put together like a 4 or 5 minute video of like funny things happening in video games that has been submitted to them. And I don't think that would have really been possible in the previous gen, because very few people had a capability of actually recording anything from their games, while now everyone has the capability of recording it.
True, you don't need like a separate hardware rig to record stuff. You can just press a button and do it.
Yeah, exactly. Press a button or just say, Xbox, record that.
Yeah.
So, which is quite cool. And then something I actually find quite interesting is the built-in support for Twitch streaming as well. Sure, it might not be the most optimal way if you actually want to do proper Twitch stream, but if you just want to like show something to a couple of friends, just go for it.
Yeah. That's very much public though. It's like not with friends or not anything interactive, is it?
No, I mean, especially not if you archive it to YouTube. It's just figured it might be an interesting thing to do, because it just was not possible before. You couldn't literally record like 50 hours of gameplay and just put it up somewhere.
No.
Well, now you can.
I remember like 10-year-old me recorded myself finishing Fantasia on the Genesis on a 4-hour-long tape.
Nice.
With a VCR recorder way back when, because nobody would believe I actually finished the game.
Nice.
So when are you going to be the next PewDiePie? Yes, you have all of the things that you need. You're Swedish for one.
True.
You've moved out. You are not in Sweden at this moment, which is another important part.
Yep. Exactly. Hell, I even live in the UK. He lives in Brighton or some shit now, doesn't he?
Yeah, I guess.
Really?
Yeah, I think he moved to Brighton. I don't know why I know this, to be honest, but apparently I do.
How about you, Eric? Did the social things help you with organizing tournaments and shit?
Well, I've been running my tournaments on the PS3, and I have this kind of I have this recording box, so I'm not, so it doesn't actually affect me in any way to have these kind of features. but I probably wouldn't use these for at least for recording tournaments at least, because I have the software and all the layouts for that, which which make streaming a bit nicer, because you can have the tournament brackets and everything on the stream while having the game there.
Yeah.
So you can do that on the PS4 at least. So the only thing it does is it gives you, it shows the chat, it shows whatever's on the PlayStation Eye if you enable that, and then it shows the game and nothing else. But if you're fine with that, then that's okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, the built-in streaming features kind of enable hobbyist streaming more than professional. If you professionally stream, you would already have a box, or at least you would lay out the $100 or whatever it costs to buy dedicated hardware to be able to stream. But, I mean, having it built on consoles is great, because anyone can just take a screenshot, take a video clip, and share it with the world. Look what I did. This is cool.
True.
Which was just not possible before. So it kind of completes the whole circle of game marketing, because people kind of end up marketing games themselves by just uploading cool stuff as well.
I think like social was a permeating aspect of the next gen as well when it was announced on the E3. Like, the Division's yet to come out, but Destiny and Assassin's Creed Unity, and I think there were some other games that were announcing like, yeah, we'll bring in, you know, people from around the world to help you during this very hard quest, and it will be just a seamless transition from single player rather than entering a multiplayer mode. How's that playing out? I don't remember seeing any of that.
I think the only game that kind of does it decently so far is Destiny, but it's not really matchmaking you. It's just, if you're in an area that is publicly accessible during a mission or whatever, there will be other players around, and they might be doing the same thing as you are, or they might just start shooting the same enemy you have to kill just because they're there and they want to kill stuff or help out.
Do we have anything else to cover?
You look bored, Eric. How about...
Nice yawn there.
Yeah.
Embracing the fail theme.
How about comparing consoles and PCs? Like, the gap used to be huge, and there were two different camps back in last gen. Is that still the case?
To some degree, yes, but I think the gap is a lot smaller, since console games perform very close to PC games now, unless your PC literally has like a 600-pound graphic card or something.
Or two of those.
Or two of them, yes. It's like, should I buy 5 consoles or should I buy 2 graphic cards? That kind of rig. Then the PC game will look a lot better. But otherwise, if you have like a average graphic card, the visual fidelity will be visible. It just won't be that extreme. That it shouldn't matter too much. And I mean, Final Fantasy XIV, for example, looks identical between the PS4 and the PC. There is no higher quality settings. It's just exactly the same on both. And the PS4 version even includes the full PC desktop UI, so you can basically switch between having a controller-based UI or a mouse and keyboard-based UI, and then you just plug in a mouse and keyboard on USB to the PS4, and there's your PC version of Final Fantasy XIV running on a PS4.
Yep.
Which is quite cool.
Yep, maybe that's something that's gonna happen more often. Like, most players tend to prefer a mouse and keyboard setup for FPSs, for instance. Maybe games will keep on moving towards consoles, but the inputs will be more varied, and a mouse and a keyboard will be a valid input set for a console. I don't know.
I think the one of the things is that the games are mostly the same between platforms now. There's no such a thing as well. There are first-party games, but exclusives are mostly just first-party games. There are no nobody's going to make an exclusive for almost any platform unless the the console manufacturer actually pays for that.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, the last game I know of that was not a first-party and console exclusive is Sunset Overdrive. But if I remember right, that studio's next game is cross-platform now.
How about voice chat? Did that improve on consoles? I remember people used to use things like TeamSpeak and Ventrilo on PC for FPSs and such, and especially for MMOs and MOBAs, but how's that on consoles now?
That's actually really good now. I mean, the consoles have it built in and it works quite well. Destiny, of course, and other games have their own like internal voice chat system. But to be honest, the sound quality is much better on the actual PlayStation party thing or the Xbox One party stuff. Having used the Xbox One party stuff a lot more than the PlayStation one, because I played Destiny mostly on the Xbox One with other people. There are issues with it. Sometimes it just can't connect and stuff, but I'm not sure if it's as bad on the PlayStation side, but for the most part it works fine. It's just sometimes you'll have a person that just can't actually connect to the party chat until he reboots his Xbox One and stuff like that.
Sounds so Microsoft.
Yeah, exactly. I've had that issue a few times as well. So
I think a lot of games these days on PC are using the integrated Steam toolkit for voice chat.
Yeah.
But I don't use voice chat too much. The last time I've used any kind of voice chat was when I was playing Final Fantasy XIV with the J Man George.
yeah, although we used Skype at that point.
Yeah, exactly. That's Japan for you. Anyway, I think we are way over the 1 hour mark. We should wrap this thing up.
Yeah, we're about an hour and 45 minutes.
Okay.
So just to round it up, last one.
Yep.
Now that last gen is going off the shelves, do you think they'll have any lasting value, those consoles? Like, will they be retro collector items that are as widely sought after and still played like the NES and the Super NES?
I think less so, because last gen consoles are visually quite close to current gen, so it's not like a massive gap. Like, oh my god, look at this! Look at how this NES game looks. It's nothing like the stuff you play nowadays. But I mean, there's sure to be like games that just will not be updated for new consoles and are just forever locked into last gen consoles that people will love and still want to play.
And one of the issues is this: we started the last gen started this DLC thing, which is interesting, which causes a lot of problems when you try to play games from. Well, for example, there are games that aren't even sold anymore, like Outrun 2 was on the PlayStation 3 and 360, and when the license ran out for Ferrari, then they couldn't sell the game. So whoever owns Outrun 2 on the PS3 and 360, they can download it, sure, but they can't. But nobody else can buy another copy of that game.
Yeah, there's another game that has the same problem. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Turtles in Time. There was a PS3 remake for that. It was up on the store and it was quite cool, but when I got my PS3 it was already pulled off because the publisher lost the rights to the franchise.
Oh god.
Or actually the rights had already expired and I could never get to play it. Actually, I need to find someone with a PS3 that actually has the game installed so I can play it.
Was it only ever a digital release?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and as far as the hardware goes, like, is it gonna last? I remember the PS1, for instance. I still have a PS1, but the CD reader is just dead. I have to have it upside down and go through 3 or 4 tries before it actually works. The PS2 actually went kind of the same way. I swapped the DVD reader on it for twice or 3 times. But it's getting a bit beyond hope now.
Didn't the PS2 have a design flaw where they had a fan literally blowing air straight across the optical reader of the drive?
Yeah.
Nice. Good design.
Yeah. I wonder if the 360 and the PS3 are gonna hold up and still be in one piece in 10 years.
Probably not. No.
No.
Especially not Eric's first edition 360.
Well, it survived this far, so why wouldn't it survive
Yep.
for another 10 years? I mean,
True.
It's already a miracle that it's there.
True. It's what, 10 years now?
Yeah.
Nice.
I wonder if 10 years from now you're gonna sell it for $10 or $1,000.
Hopefully the latter.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
All right. I guess that's a wrap unless anyone else has any more topics we want to discuss within the next 2 hours.
No. We should wrap it up and then continue the next time.
Yep. We talk too much about crap.
Yeah.
So, but hey, it's the episode of fail, so we failed keeping it to an hour.
Yeah.
Again.
Again.
Again. Maybe episode 3. We might have to call episode 3 epic fail though, worst case.
Yeah. You guys want to go now over the topics list and just pick the next one so you can prepare better for the next one?
Yep. So, I'm assuming this conversation will be included in this episode.
Yeah. Faders and all.
Yeah, exactly. Since we haven't said bye or anything, or said our Twitter names or anything like that.
My Twitter name is at Freyport. F-R-A-E port. Like a seaport.
And you've been?
And I've been what?
Your name?
Yeah. Eric. Eric Hardy.
Nice. Oh, I'm Jim Meerberg with a silent H in my name for some god-known
Swedish
unknown
reason.
reasons. Yeah, exactly. And on Twitter, I'm at Jimme. And that's as it sounds. Jim E.H.
And I've been Alex Race. My Twitter name is at AlexMRace. Just like you heard it, but Rice is R-E-I-S. Thank you all for listening in, and we'll see you back within 2 weeks for the next episode.
Cool.
All right.
Bye-bye, guys. If anyone's still listening.
Bye.
I feel sorry for your brains.
Oh, we had no brain disclaimer this time.
Oh yeah, true, we did.